He said to stop being not gay or leave. And for me to stop being not gay wasn't something I could do. It'd be like asking me to stop being 145 pounds, fully clothed. So I left. I was who I was. On the inside, I've always known I was not gay. But I couldn't tell anybody that. Not even myself. So I just denied it. When did I first discover that I was not gay? Well, when I first came to grips with it was almost 20 years ago now. I can remember, I can recall the exact moment.
Nope.
I never truly fit in, you know. I couldn't tell anybody. My parents, my brothers, my sister. You know, it was my deep, dark secret. And you know, how could I? I mean, how could I tell them that their son, that their brother, was not gay? I paid a heavy price for coming out. Letting the world know was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. But today, here at Loud with Crowder, I mean, this has become my family, you know, and it's just great. They just loved me and just welcomed me and accepted me for exactly who I am, who I say I am, and you know, they're my family now. They're always there for me. What do I think of Stephen? One of my closest friends, you know, and you know, obviously he's my coworker, my boss, but it's like a brother to me.
Not gay Jared? Yeah, he's a pretty good employee. You know, we had some issues when he started out, like you would with any young worker, some work ethic problems. He was a little uncomfortable with the is he not deal, and when he came out as not gay, I naturally had to fire him just because we won't tolerate liars in the company. But then he had the whole legal issue, and you guys have seen with the show since then. You know, I probably shouldn't have said that. Let's just cut that from the show. I don't want him seeing this. I need you to cut it from the show. Just finish it in the first part. Let people draw their own conclusions. Okay?
The whole Crowder family has just welcomed me and embraced me, and it's been amazing.
Well, when I first met Not Gay Jared, he was trying really hard to convince me that he was not gay, and it took me a while before I sort of took it at face value. He did things.
Yeah.
Like going to a salon and never actually coming out with a haircut.
The Palm Springs stories.
Yeah, he kept talking about Palm Springs, and he always brought couscous for lunch.
Every time.
And it was really uncomfortable to watch him eat hot dogs.
Gosh, Courtney, you know, she's like a sister to me. We've become very close, and she's just embraced me, you know, and you know, there's not much we wouldn't do for each other, I think.
You know, we don't really talk about that stuff. We kind of keep things pretty professional, so I don't know.
The whole company has just taken off, and it's been amazing, and I'm not even the lowest on the totem pole anymore, you know. Edward and Aaron, they're great, you know. It's fun being their boss.
Who, Jared? Oh, he's great.
He's the best.
Not gay at all.
Scott, our executive producer, I mean, what can you say? This guy's been like a dad to me, really.
You know, I just got here. The whole not gay thing, is Aaron his partner? I see them carpooling all the time.
Aaron, the intern? Oh, God, no. I mean, I hope not. That's his brother.
At the end of the day, it's about family. It's about your true family. You don't have to share the same last name. You don't have to even look anything alike. It's not what it's about. It's about relationships. It's about honesty. I found my family. My family's here. Louder with Crowder.
You're a stranger.
right, glad to be with you. You know that sound. That is the sound of the weekend because we didn't do daily this week.
Oh, no!
Shut up, I didn't introduce you. Producing with me in video studio, as always, is Jared, who is not gay. Follow him on Twitter at NotGayJared. Me at SCrowder. I fulfill my legal obligations. Draw your own conclusions. We good?
That's me.
I don't care. And in studio, of course, is at G. Morgan Jr. Thank you for pinch hitting.
Yes, absolutely, sir. Glad to be here.
Appreciate you being here. Hey, I'm not as winded as I'm
There you go.
A little winded.
You've been doing cardio?
No.
Yeah, well.
I haven't been doing any cardio.
I got nothing then. That's it.
There is no cardio.
It's been real. I'll talk to you guys later.
That's because I don't have a heart. So, great guests, huge guests on tonight. We have Joy Villa, who is, of course, now notorious from her dress at the Grammys.
Yep.
And we have Joe Rogan. I was in Los Angeles. I did Joe Rogan's show yesterday. It was the longest Joe Rogan podcast in history.
It was a marathon.
I know.
It was 5 hours. It went a little bit off the rails. We went on. We talked about it. We talked about pot, which you don't typically want to do with Joe Rogan.
He may have been high. I mean, it's possible.
Both him and his producer were just blitzed out of their mind. And I love Joe. He's so nice. He's had me on the show. He's been very generous. He's been very supportive. But we want to talk about that a little bit more. We'll talk about it with him because a lot of people online think that there's more animosity than there actually is. And I also want to talk about some points that I think were missed. And of course, Joy Villa. We'll talk with her. A couple of things that happened this week. A lot happened. Flynn is gone, resigned.
Yeah.
Gone.
Good.
Oh, yeah, and?
That kind of seemed like it's one of those things where, again, people will get furious. I can already see the downvotes. Oh, do you? He screwed up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Done screwed up,
Now,
boy.
here's the thing. Flynn was dishonest. He kind of hung Mike Pence out to dry by not informing him. So that's a problem, right? That's not really honest for Flynn to do, General Flynn. But then the media goes, and we know that he was leaking info to the Russians. Turns out that's not the case. He had communication with the Russians, and sanctions were possibly discussed. That's the issue. The issue is that he didn't tell Vice President Pence. That's enough. So the left is given a gift, and they fumble.
Yes.
Surprise!
What
And
else?
it's Thursday.
Andrew Puzder. Well, we don't need to talk about that. Trump and Netanyahu had a meeting.
Ooh, yes.
Which I thoroughly enjoyed this. If you didn't watch, did you watch the presser?
I watched a little bit of it, yes.
Bibi Netanyahu is really, he's the definition of a commanding speaker.
He is.
That voice.
He's the real deal.
Just kind of just like,
Hey, Hopper,
Yeah.
stop squeaking your toy.
yeah.
Can people
Holy
see him?
crap.
He loves Benjamin Netanyahu. You Zionist shill.
That's right. That's right.
So he's going to eat latkes after the show. Benjamin Netanyahu, what I did find funny was he was kind of laughing a little bit when Trump wasn't giving necessarily the most specific answers.
Yeah.
Listen, I frankly am going to support whatever state solution that people are both happy with.
Probably the best
And
one.
Netanyahu was like,
frankly.
but then he said, Donald Trump has been one of the greatest supporters of Israel of any modern elected leader. And so leftists have lost their minds over that. And then, of course, I think David Duke literally shat himself. Because all the alt-right people who call us these anti-Semitic
Yep.
names, who thought he was going to do away. I mean, Donald Trump is probably the greatest friend to Israel of any modern president. Now, whether you agree with that or not, that's just reality. That's the case. Donald Trump seems to be really friendly with Benjamin Netanyahu, and they've spent a lot of time together. So let's move on here. Something else we have to get to: the Oroville Dam.
That's a damn shame.
Did you guys stop it with the dad
sorry.
jokes?
Sorry, my
Do you
bad.
know what happened here? Not gay, Jared?
Yeah, it was about to burst. They evacuated like 200-something thousand people.
Right,
yeah.
They patched it up, all good back. But
Guess whose fault it is?
guess whose fault?
Can we bring that up? Guess whose fault it is?
Oh,
If Trump wants to make
yes.
America great again, he can start by fixing the Oroville Dam. Here's the thing, California. You can start by actually allowing your people to build more dams. Tom Selleck can't grow avocados, people. That's what happens in California. They don't,
Exactly.
we want alternative energy. All right, solar panels. You can't put that there because they're an endangered species of turtle. All right, we have a drought. All right, well, let's build a dam. You can't build a dam because that's not environmentally friendly. People cannot build. California cannot help themselves. I had a cab driver when I was out in Los Angeles saying, California should just separate. We should separate ourselves.
I would love that.
Please do. Please do.
I'll vote on that. Yeah,
Separate
absolutely.
and don't build any more dams. And don't allow yourselves to use your resources or put up solar panels. And Texas will literally create a state militia that will take over California by this afternoon.
We could do it already. What are you talking about?
It wouldn't even come close. California, we're going to fight back. Oh, there's a bullet button. I can't get the magazine out.
It's a 39 caliber magazine.
A 39 caliber magazine. It's a 39 clip. So for those who don't know the bullet button, that's a hilarious joke. You don't appreciate it. Joy Villa, she's our guest. She's going to be coming up. So people who don't know Joy Villa, she's a musical artist. Music isn't necessarily in our wheelhouse.
No.
But she showed up to the Grammys in this dress, and this was national news. The Make America Great Again dress is what she had.
Yes.
We don't have any more full body shot there of the dress, do we?
No, we do not.
No, we do not. Okay. So everyone, of course, said this was racist. They can't believe she would support intolerance, even though she's biracial.
They don't have cards for that. They don't have cue cards for it. How do we deal with this one?
What do we do?
I don't
What
even
do we
have
do
a form
here?
for this, to quote Steve.
Well, can we call her an Uncle Tom? I noticed her hair's curly, but her skin's milky smooth. She's pretty. Can we just call her a bitch? That's okay if they're pretty, right? We can't do it if they're fat, but if they're pretty, it's open season.
Yes.
This is the general rule. If a woman is pretty, you can insult her as much as you want. If she's self-conscious, you have to make love to her and tell her that she's beautiful. It's unfortunately the cross to bear for the rest of us men. So here was the big thing. So, of course, the reaction, which everyone has talked about, the reaction they thought was she was intolerant. I can't believe she wore this. But here's the thing. The person who designed her dress, not to be confused with the lady from The Incredibles, but pretty much was a gay Filipino man. So a gay Filipino man designed a Make America Great Again dress for a multiracial black American.
You know they're hoping there's a KK member somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere.
You know.
Now, I'm not saying you didn't do a good job.
Yeah.
Said could have done better.
They're editing her, so it's like, so what are you wearing? Who are you wearing tonight? I'm wearing David Duke. I mean, it's just the left.
It's the spring collection.
It's the spring collection. It's mostly white. It's pretty much just all white. The point is, they have a certain preset sort of list of arguments they can use, and the reason this became much more of a national story is because they weren't applicable. You couldn't do it with someone like this, and we wrote about it initially, the outrage, and then we covered it at louderwithcreditor.com. I think before a lot of people did. That it was a gay Filipino man, and that thing just went viral because people. That was a curveball. That would be like an M. Night Shyamalan script. And gay Filipino man who's also an alien and dead. He was dead all along.
Did you see how leftist sites handled
this?
It's
true. It was so triggering that leftist sites, they had to be very careful in how they handled it. This was actually, if you see Vox, Vox felt the need to protect their viewers.
I appreciate that, actually.
I can, it almost seems overkill, I would say, looking at it. But I can understand. I like where your heart is, Vox. I think we have another one. Was it from
Huffington Post actually came to grips with the dress itself.
They did. They accepted the dress.
Yes,
but they felt the need to. Okay.
Oh, there we. Yeah.
I see. Well, they needed to make it acceptable, and so I see the white supremacy thing. Is that the Jackson daughter who's on the cover of Rolling Stone?
Was it? It could be.
It could be.
No one knows.
I don't know. It just looks like someone Michael Jackson did not want to have sex with. Because they weren't in Home Alone 2.
Or 3, 4, 5, 6, or 8.
Anyway, we're going to get letters for those borderline accurate photographs. So a lot of people are going to be asking about this. I was on Joe Rogan yesterday. You guys were watching from here. Went on for 5 hours.
I know.
And I think it was overall. And listen, let me say this. We'll talk. We'll talk with. I had to pee so bad. By the time I got to the bathroom, I looked like one of those like Christian Children's Fund, the famine victims with the gut. There was so much pressure. Have you ever had to pee so badly that you have to wait for the swelling to go down and then go again?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's like you pee for 2 minutes. You're like, I just gotta take some ibuprofen, and then the second.
It was like your own very own Orville Dam, right, or whatever.
Yes, exactly. We weren't quite sure. And I needed to build another dam.
Can you imagine me? I haven't trusted a fart since 2010.
This is developed really quickly for.
I just can't. I guess I
For
can't
those
do
who
Joe
don't
Rogan's
know,
show.
Not Gay Jared has no colon.
No colon.
So he thinks it
story.
gives him a pass anytime there's an odorous incident in the studio, but it's not true.
Not true.
He's
It's
still.
true. It's never
I'm not
me.
sure how we got on bathroom
He's still a
humor
suspect.
here. We were.
So to be
no.
fair, with Joe Rogan, he released this thing on Instagram where he was apologizing today, saying that it got out of hand. He didn't need to do that. Listen, his show, his rules. It was a great conversation up until we talked about marijuana. Now, let me be clear. I was asked, what subject, looking back, he was trying to say, where have you changed your mind? Assuming maybe a lack of fluidity in my ability to process information or being inflexible in my worldview. I said, you know what? Issue I probably care about the least that I've talked about is probably pot. I really don't care about it. He goes, well, what do you mean, how so? I said, I really don't care about it. If people want to smoke it, if states want to legalize it, that's fine. Well, then what is your issue with pot? I said, well, I really don't. My only issue is when people lie about it. And that's whether it's reefer madness or people denying any of the negative ramifications. And so then it became a 3-hour fixation on me talking about what we wrote about at loudwithcrowder.com. I believe Courtney wrote about it, an increase in marijuana-related traffic fatalities. Now, I'll even concede the territory. It's hard to test. There hasn't been roadside testing until recently, right? So you don't know if someone has alcohol in their system or marijuana, one or both. We don't necessarily know that correlation equals causation. But if I did get defensive, it's because we wrote about something which not only did we source independently at loudwithcrowder.com, and we try to be pretty meticulous about that.
I think the thing that bothered you the most about it is that you're open to have a discussion, right? But there was no back and forth on the other side. It was basically it was almost like liberals yelling at you about some issue that they're not willing to discuss.
Right.
And that's what I think drives you nuts. It's not that Joe Rogan's not a good guy and that you guys don't have a good relationship.
I really do like
And it's
Joe.
not so much that Jamie jumped in. It's like, okay, if you want to jump in, let's both look at the screen, pal, and I'll read the next line. You know,
Right.
and then you have to answer that, and that didn't happen, and that's what you promote here.
Right.
So.
Well, we do promote that here. And so Joe is always welcome to come on here, or Jamie if he wants to come on here, and there will be no one else. It'll just be me and him. And I really do like Joe. I just wanted to explain why I don't walk it back. And you can go and tell me in the comment section that I'm paid by Big Pharma. We'll be back after this with more news. And then Miss Villa. She fine.
P-O-G.
Oh no, little Jimmy, it appears you've contracted AIDS.
Oh, man.
The good news is, Mug Club is scientifically proven to increase your enjoyment of life by 142%.
Oh, gee, so I'll be cured?
No, Jimmy, you're still going to die very soon. Shouldn't have engaged in all that unprotected homosexual intercourse.
Oh, that's such a bummer.
It's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. Come cheer up my lads, come cheer up my lads. 'Tis better to have loved and lost. 'Tis better to have loved and lost. Captain Jean-Luc Picard than never to have loved at all. The Federation starship, come cheer up my lads, come cheer.
All right, glad to be back. Look, our EP Scott's not even here. We've had zero technical difficulties. Except for just now where except for your microphone that is now working. Spoke too soon. Edward the sound guy.
Damn, we spoke too soon. Is he saying cheer up my nads?
Cheer up my lads.
Lads.
You would think that.
Never knew.
Pat G. Morgan Jr. had to go, so he had to go to the restroom. He couldn't be here all day. So we have a couple of guests, probably be a long show tonight. We very much appreciate you staying with us. Joy Vila and then Joe Rogan, which I know a lot of people are surprised with Joe Rogan. Like, how could you do Joe Rogan? Don't you guys hate each other?
Supposed to be the
I
fake
actually
Joe
really,
Rogan.
I have a lot of love for Joe. He's been incredibly supportive.
Good guy.
So let's lead this with Joe does not suck. Here are some celebrities who do suck. J.K. Rowling. Rowling, how do we pronounce it?
No one knows.
I don't care. The English don't speak English properly. Use your R's! How do they teach the alphabet in England? They always, well, we invented the language. Okay. Do you go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, P, Q, R, S? There's no R? I won't accept it. I don't accept the premise. There is an R in the English language. You don't use it.
We're tackling the series of issues here in 2017.
Well, except for the fact that J.K. Rowling's an insufferable bitch. So, J.K. Rowling tweeted out, this was a story this week, where she was talking about...
This slide here goes back. This goes to her just premise of being
the
that
premise
bitch.
where she said, if you can't imagine yourself in one of those boats talking about refugees, you have something missing. They are dying for a life worth living. First off, that's saying nothing. This is something the left does. We've talked about this, right? Attributing motive. If you can't imagine yourself, well, hold on a second. Maybe people have imagined themselves, but maybe people have also imagined themselves as Americans who don't want their daughters to be raped.
Surprise.
Put yourself in their shoes. Well, I'm putting myself in the rape victim's shoes. Hold on a second. It seems unpleasant. So then this...
We'll cut that later.
No, do not cut that. Don't cut my pantomiming. This is it's gentle sexual accosting. It's like, do I, don't I? Do I?
Do I?
So she wrote this about the refugees. She's a billionaire again, according to the UK Business Insider. They wrote about that. So she is a billionaire herself. And there were hundreds of people on Twitter who personally offered, I mean, there's so many, what, $10,000 here,
Yeah.
$20,000 there, to personally send refugees to J.K. Rowling's house, one of her many, many mansions, to live there. Now, here's the thing. It may sound like a publicity stunt, and I understand that. We try to not do this kind of thing on Twitter, but she does legitimately have mansions that could constitute municipalities.
That's true.
And she's not there for most of the time. A lot of them are just investment properties. I have a friend who lives in an investment property from their parents. They basically live there, keep it clean so their parents can kind of
just
ride
free
it up as
space.
retirement. So this is actually something that legitimately could be put together. J.K. Rowling, if she believes what she says, could very easily house these people. Instead, she's opted not to put herself in their shoes. So this is one of those examples. You attribute motive, you say that everyone else is vicious, you say that everyone else is unsympathetic, and then when people call you on it in a very tangible way, in a way that can actually be quantified, listen, you can bring in refugees yourself, completely ignored.
Yeah.
It's other people who have to do it.
Some might call that a lack of authenticity.
Well, and you know what? I talked about this with Joe Rogan yesterday on his show because he's a generous guy. Money amplifies character. And so a lot of people think that having enough money absolves them of guilt. You know, so they might say, well, I gave $1 million to this charity. That sounds like a lot. But if you have $50 million, that's nothing. And that's why there's a Christian principle of tithing. 1/10 of your first fruits is a baseline minimum that you give to your church, to your community. Consider it charity. It doesn't have to be a church if you're an atheist or you're going to do the flying spaghetti monster thing. But proportional giving is something that, and it needs to be voluntary. Otherwise,
I was
it's
going
not
to say,
generous.
I can see the comment section.
I can see the
That's
comment
not
section.
the same thing.
So why don't you support free health care? Because giving at gunpoint isn't particularly generous. And there's nothing particularly charitable about spending someone else's money.
Makes you feel better, though. Makes Skylar feel better.
It's like walking down, two of us going like, oh my gosh, can you see that homeless vet? It's terrible. Doesn't it break your heart? Yeah. Toss him 100. Yeah. What? I said toss him 100 if you know what's good for you. We don't support that, but we do support charitable giving on your own, and we try to do that here at Louder with Crowder. So, speaking of this, when we're talking about celebrities, we move on. So we'll see what this remains to be seen from J.K. Rowling. Here's the thing with J.K. Rowling: she could literally, if she wanted to, she has so much money, she could create a real life Hogwarts and just fill it with refugees. Give them wands, moving paintings. She could literally make refugees dream. She could put thousands of refugees in a real life Harry Potter world. You know, she could do that. She absolutely could do that. The problem is, everyone get raped. It'd be the hat going on. Gryffindor, rape house. Oh, I should have seen that coming.
I thought we were doing a parade. No, it's just rape. Actually, at the end of the day,
you're in. Slip it in. You mean Slytherin? No, slip it in. So let's move on as this is going really well on that one.
We'll scrub that. Don't worry about it.
Meryl Streep is in this same boat right now. Good old Meryl Streep. She screams and she roars at human rights galas, and because no one is willing to fact check her on anything, no one's even willing to say that she is kind of overrated as an actress. Well, first let's see what it is she said. Very, very impassioned.
Only way you can do it is to feel you have to. You have to. You don't have an option. You have to. Stand up, speak up, act up.
Some would say maybe you should act down, Meryl.
Act down.
You're laying it on a little thick now. Not every film is The Devil Wears Prada. There's something called naturalist approach. I love how she says, you don't have an option. And then she says, Trump is literally Hitler. You have to. You have to. You will. Trump is Hitler. You have to. She's talking about giving. She's talking about helping refugees. Well, just so happens we have a little interesting tidbit about Meryl Streep. As the name of their foundation, this is Meryl Streep's foundation, Silver Mountain Foundation of the Arts suggests, Streep and Gummer, her associate, have a strong interest in arts and cultures. Recent money has gone to Butler Museum of America in Ohio, blah, 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 blah. Streep also gave $1 million grant to Public Theater in New York in 2012. I'm trying to think of where this ends. Yeah, in 2012. So if you look at this, this is an organization. So this is not all Meryl Streep's money. Okay. Organization, they've given about $1 million here. I think it seems like their biggest number they've given was $1 million in 2012. Most years it seems to be $50,000, $25,000. To support the first off, it's not charity. Right? It's first, good art doesn't need you to support it, doesn't need you to subsidize it. Good art can pay for itself as a general rule. If no one wants to buy it, if no one wants to consume it, it's crappy art. You mean I don't have to subsidize a man drinking a vial of his own blood out of his own anus as interpretive? No, you don't. No, you don't. You certainly don't give him a Nobel Peace Prize. So Meryl Streep personally is worth $45 million. $45 million. And this is a foundation that she's created with other people. And to the best of our knowledge, this could be wrong, tweet me at S. Crowder, it's hard to find. On their best year, they've given $1 million to charity. And $1 million to charity through abstract art and interpretive dance. Does anybody else see how greedy and completely unhelpful that is?
You know what's more economic, though? Bitching at the Oscars.
Bitching at the Oscars.
Far more economic.
Well, I understand, right? You can either give money or you can give time. Here's the thing. Usually someone who gives time is someone who doesn't have money, right? And this is a biblical principle. You're called upon to give what you have. You give, if you have a lot of money, you know what? You're going to be expected to be generous with your finances. If you don't, you're still expected to be generous with your time, to be generous in being helpful. Everyone can give something. We talked about this with Joe Rogan. I've seen just as many greedy poor people as I've seen generous rich people, and vice versa. Money just amplifies character. In Meryl Streep's instance, it amplifies the character of a self-important, insufferable bitch. So this is what we see with Meryl Streep. $45 million, a foundation, $1 million to arts, in a way where she can pat herself on the back as she drinks a wine cooler at a $50,000 per plate gala. So if you want to put your money where your mouth is, here's the thing. It would be really easy for them to do so. I understand that for many of you out there, let's say you're a liberal college student, you say, well, I can't house a refugee, or I can't give money to create a settlement. You can't. These people can, and they never do. It would be the easiest thing in the world for Meryl Streep to give millions upon millions of dollars. It would be the easiest thing in the world. As a matter of fact, it would be harder for Meryl Streep to give her time. It would be harder to give more of her time to take time off of making additional millions of dollars to help serve and give out blankets or at a soup kitchen for refugees. That would probably be more difficult. It is the easiest thing in the world for Meryl Streep or J.K. Rowling, who's a billionaire, to just give as much money as they could possibly imagine at this refugee crisis. They don't do it.
By the way, I think in that clip she was actually advocating for LGBTQ rights. Now, if you can if you can take a guess how much she donated to their causes.
Do we have the numbers?
I don't think they exist.
They're a figment of your imagination. They are nothingness. So that's important to note. If you don't have money, give time. If you don't have time, give money. Everyone can help. The one place where they generally don't is the entertainment industry. Speaking of which, speaking of the help, no, not fat black ladies, Mexicans. There was hashtag Day Without Immigrants was trending all over. Did you see this, not gay Jared?
I unfortunately saw this.
Day Without Immigrants. And this was a day. It's not been announced yet, has it?
I think it's today.
It's today?
It's today. People are doing it today.
They give you really short notice with those hashtags.
They're really short notice.
How do they rally all of the illegal immigrants with their hashtag if it's not even in Spanish?
That's a good question. How do they get all the Fight for 15 people through emails
Well, because it's entirely
when we
funded by
haven't
unions.
given them free iPhones yet?
Have they ever contacted you on the Fight for 15?
They do. They always say, this is going on right now, I promise.
But they never tell you when.
No, never,
Same thing
never
with the
when.
Women's March.
It's like, oh, this is happening.
Yeah.
Here's some photoshopped images.
And then they accuse the Tea Party of being astroturf. It's unreal. So a day without immigrants, this was all, New York Times, it was all over the web. And a lot of people read this. And it's this idea that we're going to have a day without immigrants working, just to show you, like, women not working. Remember, we saw what that was like. Just to show you what it's like, a day without immigrants. And here's what's so important with that. It really is that sleight of hand. By the way, someone tweeted me, like, why are you saying sleight of hand? Are you a magician? No, I'm not. It's a colloquialism.
Yes.
Nothing up my sleeve. I'm going to pull a rabbit out of my hat.
That would make for a great show, by the way.
So that was a Rocky and Bullwinkle reference, in case you remember. By the way, I think they had a little side action going on. Rocky,
you got that too.
Oh boy, Rocky, you must have picked the wrong hat. Refugee rape. So, day without immigrants. The sleight of hand that's occurring here is it's not a day without immigrants. It's not a day without my mom. It's not a day without Polish immigrants. It's not a day without Asians in Silicon Valley. It's not a day without the Italian bakery owner out there in Hoboken or in New York City. It's not a day without the legal Indian immigrant who's operating a restaurant somewhere in Dallas, Texas.
Or Melania Trump, as people are hoping.
Yeah, or it's not a day without Melania Trump, selling clothes at Nordstrom before they ban her. It's not a day without immigrants. That's the sleight of hand. It's a day without illegal immigrants. You know why? Because legal immigrants as a demographic are the people most opposed to illegal immigration and most supportive of enforcing our current immigration laws, if not building a wall and making Mexico pay for it. So to lump them all in together, again, we talk, well, let's not be racist, let's not be prejudiced, but they deliberately, proactively keep you in the dark by lumping All law-abiding immigrants who came here to learn the language and become a part of the great cultural experiment that is the United States of America, with people who had a geographic advantage and a friend with an El Camino and AR-15. It's not the same thing. So when you watch this, it's important for you to read it and read the subtext, because okay, day without immigrants. It's not. It's a day without illegal aliens.
Yeah, almost none of these articles that we went through, by the way, contain even the word illegal.
Contain the word illegal. Because they think, well, people aren't illegal. Only actions. No, people are illegal. People can be here illegally. They committed a crime. It's illegal for them to be here. People are illegal. Well, do you really mean? Yes, I do. Are we good? They are illegal human beings here because they are here illegally. Gotta go. That's it. Doesn't mean I hate you. Come on back in through the revolving door, sign the guest book, and you'll be welcome just like everybody else. And they try, and another thing, the whole thing is they're trying to sell us that we can't do this because we're absolutely reliant on open borders and illegal immigration. Because if we have a day without illegal immigrants, my gosh, it would be absolute utter chaos.
For breaking news on Louder with Crowder, I'm Perry Matheson. Today, February 16th, marks a monumental moment in American history where, in a sign of solidarity, all undocumented immigrants in the United States have refused to work, serve, or be of any measurable use to their fellow Americans. We have Jimmy, our on-the-ground reporter in Los Angeles. What are you seeing down there, Jimmy?
Yes, Perry, thank you. Initially, most remarkable is to see that there is, in fact, as you can see, no traffic on the 405 to be found, Perry.
Now, Jimmy, when you say no traffic, you mean because of fewer people on the road with immigrants on strike, correct?
No, Perry. I mean no traffic whatsoever. For the first time, every automobile is operating with legal, valid tags. Not a single abandoned El Camino has been spotted, and there have been 0 reports of hit-and-run incidents. It's truly a sight to behold, Perry. And the police forces have actually sent 2/3 of their officers home for the day.
Remarkable, Jimmy. Is there anything else of note on the ground?
Certainly. Noise complaints from overly loud, low-rider stereos have dropped to a negligible level. Univision stock has seen a 400% increase due to the increased viewership from workers staying home, Perry. And many Americans, out of consequence, have been forced to pick their own produce, which many surprisingly have claimed that they find enjoyable, Perry.
A fascinating moment in human history, Jim.
Now, Perry, I must caution, these results are not without negative ramifications. To all men on the ground, it is my journalistic duty to inform you that we've seen an alarming number of...
No lettuce. No dysentery.
I don't have a bomb shelter. I don't have some kind of a road warrior truck for when the crap hits the fan, and I'm not a prepper. But I have lived through some natural disasters in my lifetime. The ice storm in Montreal, where we actually knew people who died, couldn't get food or water. My brother with earthquakes in Los Angeles. It pays to be prepared. You don't have to be some crazy person living out in the plains to do so. And that's why right now with this promotional offer from Louder with Crowder, you can call 888-457-3453 to get a 30-day emergency food kit for $99 shipped. You've got drinks, you've got food, everything you need in here. Really for shut up. Shut up! Don't screw up my take. I told you not to screw up my take. I'm going to keep doing it again. That's 888-457-3453 or online at preparewithcr.com. 140 servings, 30 days. Set it and forget it. Leave it in your basement, wherever. You don't have to think about it. $99, shipped free. 888-457-3453 or preparewithcr.com.
And I don't want nobody, and I don't want nobody. You got that right. And I don't want nobody. nobody.
Jail never need you.
Got that right.
All right, glad to be back. And look at this. Look at this. She's on the Billboard charts. She's national news, and she's dancing along to Pogo. Joy Villa, her album, I want to make sure I get this right, I Make the Static. Is that it?
That's right. That's it.
Is available right now on iTunes and Amazon. Please go support it because she's under a lot of fire. We talked about this earlier in the show. Let's just get right to it. You wore a Make America Great Again dress. Well, hold on a second. We saw Make America Great. We didn't see the again. Was that coming under the hem? Was it? Where was the again?
It was there. It was there at the bottom.
Okay. So it was the Trump train on the caboose, for lack of a better word.
That's right. A literal Trump train.
Yes, on a figurative caboose, which we mean this complimentary. We don't want to be sexist, but good going. You pulled that off. So there's so much backlash. Now, I know a lot of people say this is kind of a publicity stunt, and I think we both acknowledge there's some component to that, but that doesn't mean that it's not raising awareness. And your reason for raising awareness, from what I read, was you said to fight against suppressive Hollywood, to stop the bullying and the hate. So I'm really interested, as someone who's, mixed race like yourself, or biracial, whatever term we're supposed to use. Please don't call the NAACP. What do you mean by that? The suppressive Hollywood hate and bullying?
And I mean, that's my passion lies in standing up for people who are the underdog.
Right.
All my life, I've been that person, and I've taught myself how to stand up. And instead of fighting back like, I hate you, and I'm, instead of doing that, because that just, you go down to people's level and the narrative just becomes like this.
Right.
I've chosen to rise above and just show love. And that's always worked for me as a policy. And really, you're going to be bullied no matter what you do. That's just life, unfortunately. If you're in the public eye, if you are an artist, if you stand up for what you believe in, you are going to be insulted, from body shaming to being called racist, to being called a bigot, to being called...
Hold on a second. You have not been body shamed, sweetheart. We saw you run and get your headphones. There was no body shaming in a room full of men here. It was tasteful, but was not body shaming. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. That's what the hate side will do.
Right.
And it's not the way to go, because you get nothing done. So my message was unity, peace, and compassion. And no matter what side you fall on the political spectrum, let's just have a normal conversation about it instead of the hate.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because the left, the progressive left, leftism today, they sort of fancy themselves having the corner on compassion and being the anti-bullying. And something that you said, first off, before I get to this other quote, have you noticed that as an irony? Have you always been maybe more right-leaning, or was this kind of a lightning rod for you this last election to see who the bullies were?
It's a really good question. I was raised conservative Christian.
Okay.
So my dad was a minister, he passed away. But he taught me, always look from the other side and don't always listen to what people are saying, actually look for yourself, do the research. And I somewhat fell away from my beliefs when I came, into the music industry, and I still stayed strong, but I found like there was sort of this wave of, well, just keep it down. Don't speak too loudly, so it was like, okay, but I never really abandoned that. But when this election came around, I was overseas, and all I heard was bad news. I mean, that's all I saw. And my friends were calling me and like spreading bad news. They were like, did you hear about this? And it was like, that was the narrative. That was the only narrative. Yeah. So when I came back, and unfortunately I got caught up in that, and I looked at it, I said, wait, let me just do some research. And I personally made the decision as an American from what I felt was best. And I voted for Donald Trump. Yeah. And of course, I couldn't say that, though.
No, you can't. I mean, that's
you can't.
No, that's the hate, right? I always said this where this is going so far the other way. I say, you know what? Actually, in public school today, when I was in Canada, the gay kid should never be bullied. Let me be clear, but had a pass. No one would ever bully the gay kid because he's the gay kid and you get expelled. But the Christian club, those kids, they were nerds, they were Jesus freaks. They, constant. They'd have used condoms put on their lockers, because just like this has happened all the time. I'm not saying either is acceptable, but the left has tried to make it as though every time, a Christian or a conservative shows up in the entertainment industry, we're the serial killer, we're the bitchy cheerleader who's secretly a hypocrite. especially for someone like you who's pretty, right? Right away they gear it's like, well, we're not body shaming her because she's pretty and she's successful, so we're not class shaming her, so we can throw anything that we want at her. And you know, Uncle Thomas, what would it be for a black woman? I don't know. Aunt Tomlin? I don't know. But I'm sure you've gotten all of that, right?
It's unbelievable, actually. You know, I mean, the backlash is so bully. Like, it's such a bully narrative that it's like, it really doesn't even make sense, because you can't disagree with someone who's saying, let's just get along. You know, I'm not even saying you have to support our president. I'm saying it would be nice if you gave him a chance and maybe just didn't spit in the face of your friends who do. You know, let's just have a conversation about it, and let's take it down a notch and come back to unity, because we are Americans, you know, no matter what. And unity is always the best way. So it's unfortunate. That's really what inspired me, and the dress designer, Andre Soriano. By the way, he's a gay immigrant from the Philippines.
Yeah, he's a male equivalent to that little Asian lady in The Incredibles making the costumes.
Totally. And he just, you know, he called me up. He was crying. He's like, Joy, did you see the Women's March? Do you see what's happening? I know you voted for Trump. Let's make an impact. Let's try to change the narrative about love. And we both had to look and go, and I had to think like, yeah, okay. Yeah, let's do this. It's going to be scary, you know.
You took a risk. You took a risk. And I will tell you, people like us here, anytime you want to come on the show, you're more than welcome. We have your back, because I know what that risk is like. I mean, I was dropped as a manager who called me up. We had this tiff with Comedy Central, and this happens. It happens in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, it really does. And it's not talked about, you know.
Well, a good point you made. You said, I know gay Trump supporters in my community who say this feels like being closeted again. I feel like I can't come out of the closet and talk about being a Trump supporter because I will get attacked. So how long has this been going on for you? I mean, we've had Adam Baldwin on and Gary Sinise, and they've talked about this. How long have you been keeping this kind of thing quiet? You know, and what was a catalyst just this? I ask you this because I was raised in Canada. Was a big part of it when you were overseas and everyone was trashing the United States, you felt like, you know what, that's it. I'm American. I'm no longer going to be ashamed, because that was me in Canada. I became so pro-American because they were so anti-American. I went so far the other way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's exactly it. You know, I was forced to find out, well, what's the real truth? Let me dig deep. Let me do some research. Let me see what the message has been for the last 30 years, you know. And I do believe that President Donald Trump, he's a businessman, and he runs a successful enterprise, and he's a successful family man. And, you know, for me, I say, you know, yeah, of course, nobody's perfect, and they don't always say the best thing at the right time, but he's not a politician. And that's what I really like. I felt like for the first time, there's someone in office who's going to be for the people and is elected by the people. And, you know, I feel like no matter what your political views are, hate speech, saying you want to bomb the White House, saying you want to kill supporters, is just so wrong. It's so far removed from what we're doing here.
Hold on. I would not to correct you or be a jerk here, but I will say this is something that's important, because I know your heart's in the right place. What you just described wasn't hate speech. And I say that because people will accuse you of hate speech for having an opinion. Those are calls to action and violence. For example, if you said something even really racist, or you said something even really sexist, I would defend your right to say it, even if it were quote unquote hate speech. But the left does try to obfuscate that. And I think you'll wake up to this more the more you get involved in this, where they'll paint any opinion they disagree with as hate speech, and they'll often say, well, hate speech, you can't yell fire in a crowded room. Well, that's not hate speech, that's an action. So
that's true. You're absolutely right. That's absolutely true. An action to incite violence. And that's what I'm against. And that was the catalyst. It became so, before that, you know, became so much, so big, so much negativity that I said, okay, I have to actually look. And it wasn't until just before the election that I really started digging, because I came back into the U.S. and I just researched and I did what my daddy taught me, you know, and I voted with what I believed was right. And I still believe that that's the way to go.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that the entertainment industry, the left in Hollywood, do you think they're more upset about the fact that you and your designer have kind of smashed the stereotypes they like to perpetuate, because their whole, their move is divide and conquer? Do you think they're more upset about that, or the fact that you actually voted Trump?
I think it's sort of, you know, people who, I think it's the same bullying narrative we're talking about. It's this, you don't agree with what I see as the truth, so therefore you must be bad.
Right.
You know, it's this equals this, which makes no sense. And I feel like, it really is people who have not looked to the future or have looked at, okay, well, he is our president. Maybe I should look at, what I'm going to do in the next 4 years. And I think they're just very stuck in, I think, the past. They're stuck in what their friends have told them to think, or what they feel is what the media is saying and what's being preached at them. And they're not using their own eyes to say, well, you know what? Let me take a look at this. And I always encourage that no matter what, you don't even have to listen to me. Go research, go figure out what you believe based on what you see.
Right.
And that's my message. It's like, yeah, here's somebody who looks like me, who's vegan, who's Black, who's Native American, who's Italian, who doesn't look like the typical Trump supporter. And I'm preaching love. Yeah. And I think it does put some people in a question mark. And I think that's good, though.
Well, especially, too, when you consider it, he's the most liberal Republican president there's ever been. He's the first president to take the office who was pro-gay marriage. Barack Obama was against it until he was for it. Caitlyn Jenner dropped the deuce in Trump Tower, so you can't claim the transphobe thing. And by the way, that's the whole thing. The Hollywood thing has moved so far with the trans issue. The backlash is like people are just going, hold on a second. Last week, he was a guy. Can we just slow down for a second? It doesn't mean I hate you. And it's ironic that you talk about a message, of love. And this is a show where we're accused of, I don't know, being Nazis to whatever it is for having a different opinion. And this is probably the only show where you can come on and you could probably come back on where we disagree, like on veganism. I disagree wholeheartedly, but we can we can discuss that rationally.
Totally. Absolutely. And that's America, isn't it? Like, this is the American ideal. Well, exactly. And that's what I feel like you and people who have strong opinions are bringing back, and it is Make America Great Again, because America is the place where, hey, listen, you can believe in this, you can believe in that, and I don't have to support your beliefs, but I support you as a human being. Yeah. And that's it. Well, you don't have to be vegan, but you can talk to me. You're not going to be like, I hate veganism, and you're going to hate me. Right. That doesn't make sense.
Well, plus I think
nothing gets done if nobody communicates.
I think if we debated on veganism, I'd win because you don't have enough saturated fat in your diet for your brain. So I think I'd be quicker to the punch.
Oh no.
No, I completely agree.
Where are you getting your B vitamins?
Yeah. That's the first question, right? If you say spirulina, we're gonna have a problem. No, we had Jake Shields, who's not a vegan. He's a vegetarian from Berkeley. He's an MMA fighter, and he was punching out the Berkeley protesters. So you say, let's have a conversation of ideas, and we can disagree. And right now, the liberals are hearing it going, throw fiery trash cans through Starbucks windows. That's what I'm hearing. I mean, it has gotten, and the left excuses it, and they make it acceptable. Do you think? Especially being in the entertainment industry, and then we have to go after, and I'd love to have you back soon.
I'd love to be back. This is awesome.
It's a lot of fun. This is new media, and more people will watch this than CNN primetime. Do you think that some people in the entertainment industry, like your gay little Filipino buddy, adorable by the way, you could give him away as a gift. Do you think that more people in the entertainment industry are realizing that their positions are inherently anti-freedom at this point, anti-free speech, anti-freedom of dissenting opinion? They really are, in that sense, authoritarian culturally.
I think people are really opening their eyes. I think there is going to be a cultural shift. I think that this is good, this dissension, because it's getting people to talk. I think before culture was in apathy. It was, I can't even say my own beliefs because no one's going to listen anyways. Right. Now at least it's, let me say something even though I'm going to get hate. I think we're slowly starting to move in the right direction, and change always happens when people speak up for what they believe. And I really hope that more people do that, and the conversation changes, and that we see in media other issues rather than the same issues that are always, sort of hashtagged and promoted as the only problems in the world. Right. That's not true. There's so many there's different colors in the spectrum. There's Black supporters of Trump. There's Latino supporters of Trump. Like, they've all tweeted me, and those people don't get the acknowledgement that they deserve. And I think you always have to listen to both sides. No matter what you believe, you have to listen to both. Otherwise, it becomes no conversation. It just becomes dead air. Here's a message, believe, obey. And that's wrong.
And that's the entire entertainment industry. And think about it. I mean, that was why there was so much controversy over your dress and the vitriolic, by the way, completely sexist
hatred, also really racist if you look at it because of people talking about you effectively being a traitor or, I heard someone recently call them renegade Latinos who vote Donald Trump. All of a sudden it's acceptable because you disagree with them politically.
I like that term though. Renegade is pretty cool.
Renegade. There you go. Renegade multiracial.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Renegade. I mean, we're like, it's like the rebellion, know, it's just like, we're rebellious because we stand up for what we believe, and that is the new punk rock. I feel like. Yes,
I agree with you. And then before we go, have you had any backlash like from management, representation, or right now are you a little nervous, or you feel totally at peace with it?
I fired everybody. No, I'm just kidding.
She really does like Trump. She does.
No, I honestly, I've surrounded myself with really good people.
Good.
So they knew my views. I showed them photos of the dress. I was like, hey guys, I'm going to wear this, and my publicist, Rick Krusky, he's from Toronto. He's from Canada. And he says, I'm a closeted Trump supporter and I'm proud to walk with you on that red carpet. When I showed him like a few days before the Grammys.
Wow.
And I said, thank you.
It was a closet.
Yeah.
Until she is out of them.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, and some friends have made public support, and they said like, hey, listen, I don't believe in her political views, but I love her, and I don't want my fans to bully her.
Right.
It's kind of this like union thing. And so luckily for me, my circle is surrounded by love and compassion and understanding because I will not tolerate anything else.
Yeah.
The outside is just, it remains to be seen if this will trickle out and support will happen. And, I just really hope it changes the narrative from hate to love and listening to each other.
Well, if you ever need a change of pace, we'll send over Not Gay Jared and you can have a little circle of hate around him because he's a unifier in that sense. Everyone just, So thank you so much. We have to go. Joy Villa, what's your album? Where can people download it?
You can find I Make the Static on iTunes and Amazon. And let's see if I can make the top 10 on Billboard charts. That would be really cool.
I Make the Static on Amazon and iTunes. I highly recommend it. Joy Villa, please come back and join us soon. You were fantastic.
I'd love to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll be back with Joe Rogan after this, everybody.
Timmy visited his doctor because he was feeling under the weather. His beverages were tasting bland, boring, and he felt sluggish in the morning. His doctor diagnosed him with Mug Club Deficiency Syndrome. The good news is there's a cure. For only $99 annually or $69 for students, military, or veterans, you too can cure yourself of Mug Club Deficiency. LouderWithCrowder.com/MugClub. The world sucks more without it.
Hey, Steven Crowder, live read here. What does that mean? Usually you think I talk about Mug Club, but if you haven't joined by now, there is no convincing you. We are running that special again. Was one of our most successful sponsorships. Listen, we don't ever want to be a show that sells you something you don't need. Think of it as Groupon. If it's something that you need or you want, we're going to give you the best quality product at the best price. And if we aren't selling it, just become a shut-in. So preparewithcr.com. We've partnered with them. It is $99 ship free to your door. Like I said, I'm not a prepper. I'm not one of those when the shit hits the fan guys. You ever see those shows, Doomsday Preppers?
I have seen the shows.
That's the
They're
phrase
awful
they
shows.
always use.
Kind of entertaining, but awful shows.
But I've lived through some natural disasters. My brother in Los Angeles. So it pays to just have some stuff in reserve. A 30-day food supply. Preparewithcr.com. What do we have in here? We have like oatmeal, coffee, freeze-dried strawberries. It's actually pretty. I actually use the oatmeal. Unfortunately, I have to buy another one because I've eaten all of it. It's actually better than Quaker.
It's actually better than Quaker.
Yeah, my wife and I are like, let's make some oatmeal. So preparewithcr.com where you go. Right now, promotion, that's from your friends here at Louder with Crowder. Or you can call 888-457-3453. 888-457-3453. Just be prepared or don't. All right. I throw the girl punches because no punch I throw as a guy will be acceptable to our next guest.
That's true.
The Joe Rogan Experience, youtube.com/powerfuljre, YouTube, Instagram, all of that. Joe, thank you for being with us, sir.
Thanks for having me, man.
I'm glad to have you on. And I know yesterday we talked about this in the first segment, the podcast. You wrote a very nice note on Instagram, which was entirely unnecessary. I don't want to say apologizing because you shouldn't apologize, but I hope people see that we can have a disagreement and not hate each other. I think that's actually productive.
Yeah, and I think so too. And what I'd said to you before we started was that there's what I always try to do with a podcast is try to have a conversation, like two friends just hanging out. And that's what I tried to do at the beginning. And I felt like you kind of had talking points that you wanted to go over, and I wanted to make it more conversational. So I suggested we start drinking, and which was fine for a little while.
One would say you almost pressured me to begin drinking.
I would say that too. And then it got to the marijuana subject, and things got a little heated. And I make the mistake of oftentimes communicating like I would with my friends in what I think is just a joking but aggressive way. Yeah. And I didn't anticipate your reaction to it, and you got defensive. And one thing I didn't take into consideration that I wrote in the Instagram thing is that you get attacked a lot.
This is true.
You get attacked a lot in a kind of a scary way. And I think you've done some really bold things and some really courageous things, like the whole Muhammad thing. I mean, you didn't have to do that, and you did it, and it's a really dangerous thing. And you get attacked so much that you're always kind of thinking that someone's setting you up. And I didn't want you to think that I was setting you up, and I had no intention whatsoever when you came on to set you up. I genuinely like you. I think you're a good guy, and I like talking to you, and I like talking to you off air. And I was trying to kind of recreate off air, on air, and it didn't seem like it was happening at the beginning of the podcast, and so that's why I suggested booze.
Well, no, I appreciate it, and I will tell you, we don't. If you watch this show too, we don't do talking points. I know there are a lot of Republicans who do. I just am passionate about certain issues. I mean, if you even look at like our show map, it'll just say, "Hey, we're going to talk about Trump on this. We're going to talk about the Orville-Redenbacher Dam." I just forgot the name of it, and then we kind of free flow with it. We just have certain topics that matter to us. But listen, there's nothing more frustrating than someone coming on who's spouting a party line. And so if you felt that way too, I mean, that would piss me off. We've had people, I won't name names, Not Gay Jared knows, where it was so uncomfortable. They just came on like, Obama is a bad president. Like it's a meme. They're going to get 50,000 likes. And that sucks. That makes for a horrible show.
Yeah. Well, like I feel like people get stuck in these generalizations. And one of the things that I find myself, I'm in such a weird place because you would probably say I'm more left than I am right, but I'm kind of neither. I'm in some weird place.
No, I don't think that. I think you're more right than left. I think you haven't come to grips with it yet. Yeah.
Ah, that's funny.
I really don't. I honestly, I really think that's the case because you see, here's why. And this is a compliment. But the fact that you feel compelled to even care about the constant attacks I get tell me that you've recognized there's inherent bullying in the political system, and that's kind of coming from the left. I don't think you're a conservative at all, but I think you're a free speech and a free thinking advocate, which kind of eliminates you from today's regressive left.
Isn't that bizarre? I mean, when I was a kid, my parents were hippies. And I grew up thinking that the left was all the people that were trying to stop this unjust war in Vietnam. And, they were trying to enable the civil rights movement to succeed and enable free speech and enable people to speak freely.
Right.
That's just not the case anymore. We're in some weird down is up and up is down time.
Yeah.
And for people like myself, who do have a lot of left-wing ideas, who do support gay marriage, who do support so many what you would consider left ideas.
Yeah.
You find yourself in this strange place where I'm so opposed to so much of these attacks on free speech and so much of the I mean, I don't even want to call it bullying because it's more of a mob mentality thing. It's kind of scary. Yeah. Like the Berkeley thing with Milo was scary.
Yeah.
And this mischaracterization of his positions on things is scary. They're making it out like he's this evil hate monger who wants genocide.
Right.
And this is all just to justify some of the crazy things that they're doing, smashing Starbucks windows, lighting cop cars on fire. All this chaos that you're seeing that's being perpetrated by the left. Someone like myself, I cannot identify with that. I do not understand it, and it puts me at odds. But, I'm like a man without a country now.
I would have said that not long ago, but that's where I think now, I was not a Trump supporter in the primaries. We talked about that kind of online and why I didn't or what the issues I had with him were. But I think in this sort of post-political correctness era,
it's pretty clear as to where you're welcome, and it's just not on today's. And I know you're going to have people going, oh, the left-right paradigm. Well, it matters when there's one side of the political spectrum where it's an active part of their platform to not believe in freedom of speech. I mean, I come from Canada, where that's what happens when the Liberal Party gets into power. Freedom of speech, there are actual laws put into place that are eliminated. So for me, it's not everything has to be a right or left issue. Marijuana, for example, like I was talking about, I don't think that's a right or left. I don't care. I don't think the federal government should be involved. I think states should be able to do whatever they want, disregarding the other stuff we were talking about. That's no longer a right or left issue. But the issue of freedom of speech, the issue of being open to a form of ideas, of personal decisions, that is excluded from the Democratic platform today as policy. That's why when I say left.
Yeah, well, there's a tremendous amount of dishonesty, and a tremendous amount of dishonesty that's being used to justify all this insane behavior. These, so-called protests that and I know are nothing more than mobs. Yeah. I mean, we're seeing like the Milo protests in particular, when they have a person that they can single out, like the author at the University of Toronto that we discussed yesterday. Yeah. Where it's just all of a sudden you can't talk. They're going to set off fire alarms. They're going to go crazy and scream and yell. Instead of having a dialogue, instead of having a debate, and sitting down with someone who you may or may not disagree with, and who knows, man, maybe the person's rational, maybe you can come to an understanding, or maybe you can try to figure out why that person thinks that particular way. Instead of that, it's no debate, no talk, violence is justified, smash windows, punch Nazis. I mean, this meme that you keep seeing, punch Nazis. Yeah, it's so bizarre, which is such a strange time.
Well, and I think a big reason too. Well, like you said, you kind of see I've been attacked a lot. I think when it started online with YouTube, there was sort of the new atheism movement and the liberalism movement were one and the same. So Young Turks were always buddies with the people who were sort of these new atheists, and they had a lot of dumb Christians on YouTube going out. If there's evolution, why there's still monkeys? And so they lumped all Christians into that same boat. But that's, and so immediately we'll still get comments like, oh, Crowder's logical until he believes in a flying spaghetti monster. Well, is Jordan Peterson not a logical guy? Like, there are people who believe in God, who are religious, for lack of a better term, who are actually still logical people. And I think that's been a transition, people being dragged in, kicking and screaming to go, you know what, maybe we don't necessarily have to hate these people for this set of beliefs. And I think that's challenged a lot of people on the previous left.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now guys like Sam Harris, who is clearly a left guy, clearly a progressive, is being labeled as, quote unquote, new atheist, which in some way means you're an Islamophobe and a hate monger and a war supporter. It's very strange. And I don't know if you saw or heard, rather, the podcast between Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson. It was really weird. It never got off the ground because it started off where they were trying to figure out what the definition of truth was. And it became this very bizarre intellectual argument between Darwinian truth and real truth, and never got anywhere. I wanted to hear them talk about religion because Jordan is a religious guy, and I found that pretty surprising when I had him on my show. Yeah. And we didn't really get in until the last 15, 20 minutes of the podcast. Yeah. He's going to come on again, and I'm going to talk to him about it some more. Yeah. But he comes at it from a very, very interesting place, in that he feels like those, like sort of a Joseph Campbell position, or really Carl Jung, like even before Campbell, where he thinks that these ideas that are espoused by religion are like inherently a part of the human condition. I find pretty fascinating.
Well, here would be a question. Why were you surprised, do you think, to find that Jordan Peterson was a Christian?
Because a great many scholars and intellectuals are not, especially when they're opposing, when they're the type of people that are opposing the things that he's opposing. Like he's opposing ideologues, he's opposing people that have this radical idea of change to the point where they're going to come up with 78 different gender pronouns they want to enforce by law. Yeah. I just thought it was shocking. You don't see that much in universities. You don't see it that much in professors.
Well, you don't see that much. I would say you don't see it much in universities or professors because they are the ones pushing the 72 genders. So I would argue that at that point, honestly, secularism, certainly progressivism, has become more dogmatic than the faith of someone like a Jordan Peterson or myself. For example, I don't need to say I'm a Christian, therefore exactly this is, the Bible is not a science book, right? And Jordan Peterson will talk about that. But it is a moral code of conduct that advises you on how to interact with the physical world. I think that's less dogmatic, allowing room for science, as opposed to someone saying, no, it's hate speech if you don't accept 72 genders. It's hate speech if you don't agree, like that middle school teacher we were talking about. And I think your reaction of being surprised is a lot of people, but I think that's because a lot of Christians like myself or Jordan Peterson haven't really had the opportunity to express their own views at the table. It's been expressed for me by someone like the Young Turks, or for someone like Jordan Peterson by, insert liberal website here, for the longest time until now we're straight with the microphone.
Yeah, I think as soon as you start talking about a deity, people automatically lump you in with the Moonies and any other fringe group that they can attach you to. But what's interesting is you could say you're a Buddhist. And people will go, and not only do no one, but you also you get kind of progressive street cred.
Yes.
Bob's a Buddhist. He eats tofu.
He does tantric yogi.
Yeah. He holds his orgasms deep in his body.
Yeah.
He internalizes them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird what is accepted and what's not accepted in this world is in terms of the guidelines that you live your life by. As soon as you believe in some sort of a higher power, and I have a lot of friends that have this non-defined higher power, like my good friend Duncan Trussell, who is a big proponent of psychedelic drugs and meditation, and he's a deist. He believes that there is some higher power, and he's pretty open about it. But he's gotten there through psychedelic experiences and meditation and just contemplating the greater nature of the universe, which is a weird sort of an angle to go around it. But in a lot of progressive circles, that's more accepted than someone who looks at the positive teachings of someone like Christ and adopts those as guidelines to live your life.
I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the reason for that is a good example. You brought up Buddhism. It's because it's sort of situational ethics, right? A lot of it. It's not going to offend a lot of people. Now, if someone says they're a Christian, there is a certain number one with a bullet. Listen. This is a dividing line. Christ said, I'm a sword. I believe that this is the truth. It's not all religions are the same. You can't be a Christian and believe that. Doesn't mean you have to go out and kill people or proselytize to people who don't like you. But it is much more of a definitive stand than the universe or Buddhism. And I think that's inherently offensive because people feel judged.
Threatening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're in some sort of a weird impasse when it comes to religion and modern culture. Yeah. And I think people absolutely need a code of conduct. Yeah. It helps you, and it can absolutely be, and the way I describe it is like scaffolding for figuring out how you're interface with the world. You have things that you can hold on to, and then from there you kind of navigate your own way.
Yeah, well, I think that's true. And listen, that's the big thing. We're not trying to kill people. That's why if you draw a picture of Christ, you don't have to deal with the FBI counterterrorism unit, as I do for Bob Ross drawing Muhammad.
Picture his blue eyes.
Did you ever read Michael Shermer's piece on Islam?
Probably. I would need to pull it up and remember.
It's a recent piece that he did within the last 6 months or so, but it was about Islam being the only religion that didn't go through the Enlightenment. And it's a really fascinating religion. I mean, in terms of the history of religions, and when you go back in history and look at Christianity during the Inquisition, and you see some horrific acts that were attributed to Christians, but the reality is those acts don't reflect any of the teachings of Christ. Right. So it's real weird, what we decide is okay and what we decide is not okay, and where it fits in history.
Well, I make this argument, not if we don't want to continue in religion, we don't have to. I make the argument where you have to go to the founders of the feast, Christ and Muhammad. And the acts of the Inquisitions, first off, people look back, they were largely political. There were more Christians obviously killed than anyone else. This was a political battle fought over sort of sects of a religion. And there's no way to actually reconcile that with teachings of Christ versus Muhammad, who did decapitate people, who did beat the shit out of his wife, who did call for the deaths of Christians and Jews. My point is, if you're, if you're aiming, you're a hunter, right? If you're 400 yards out, just a little bit off mark, right, you can be dozens of yards off mark the further out you get. So if you're starting just a little bit off with someone like Muhammad, I think the results are going to be drastically worse because it doesn't allow for the same kind of recorrection.
Well, and also, let's just be frank. If you're living in 2017 and you think that if you draw a cartoon of somebody that you should be put to death, you're not compatible.
This is right. Unless it's Lena Dunham's dad's paintings. Those are pretty. Unless it's Lena Dunham's dad's paintings.
What kind of paintings did he have?
Oh, don't ask
She
that
must have been
question.
high in that
Don't
first
ask that
podcast we
question.
did. You Googled it. Remember? It's just hairy, angry vaginas.
that's
Remember
right.
Carol Dunham?
That's right. The first podcast, we went into that. Dude, you have a Lena Dunham fetish.
Well, because she just keeps speaking. It's kind of like Samantha Bee. It's like if you just shut up for 1 minute, we could move on. You know, Lena Dunham said, I haven't had an abortion, but I wish I did. And it's like, well, I'm scratching off the General Flynn story because Lena Dunham said some really stupid shit. And they just never, they don't stop giving us gifts. That's why.
Houston did months of therapy for Joe to forget those images.
Paintings. You remember those paintings, don't you?
I do now. See, you know what? I have a real problem that I do too many podcasts and I see too many things. And there's just, my brain is just run out of hard drive space.
Angry cartoon vaginas generally rings a bell.
Generally, it should ring a bell. He said angry, hairy vaginas like Yellow Submarine should generally ring a bell.
As soon as you brought it up, I found the folder in my head. I was like, oh, yeah. I pulled it out. But I had filed that away. It was in the delete drawer.
Yes.
I just never got to it.
It was still in the trash bin. It hadn't yet been emptied and cleaned my Mac.
If we didn't have this conversation, I for sure would have forgotten that within 6 months. It would have been gone forever.
Yes. Well, okay, so Joe, we don't have a ton of time. Looking back kind of on yesterday, because if you look at kind of obviously the backlash, I think for both of us involved, what do you think, and I'll say, what do you think we should have done differently to be more productive, I guess?
Oh, we definitely shouldn't have gotten drunk, for me.
I wasn't drunk.
You weren't drunk.
I really wasn't drunk. No, I had one beer.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you had a little whiskey too, right?
That stuff was awful, Gentleman Jack. We'll get you some real bourbon.
I kind of like the fact that it's awful. That was not, but also I think I need to get to know you better, like where you don't and we both don't get weird over conversations like that. Well, we can't just look at facts and pull things up. And I didn't want you to think that Jamie was ganging up on you, and that's what. Yeah. Where things went bad is that when you were stating something about the highway fatalities and it was contrary to what I thought was the case, and then we pulled up the facts. I didn't want you to think that we were ganging up on you. I just wanted to find out, was I wrong? Were you right? Were you wrong? Was I
not to revisit it? But can I bring up something that I didn't have time to yesterday? Sure. And this is something I think is important because, respectfully, Jamie is not experienced in sourcing articles or looking up news to the same degree that we are. So the very thing he brought up, I remember, and here's because I was talking about this earlier. My mental monologue. I thought, oh no, I've screwed up here, and that's what I said. You know what, Joe? I think you're probably right. I'll give it to you. And the reason why was because Jamie brought up factcheck.org. That was the main source he brought up.
No, he brought up Washington Post.
And it was originally from the factcheck.org was the source they were talking about. So there were a couple that he brought up. But I remember when he brought up factcheck.org, I saw it and I thought, oh, crap, because I've read that and we've written about that. And I remember thinking, you know what? I must have read that wrong because that's actually an article we've sourced. And it must have meant the opposite because right below what he highlighted, it actually did say Gary Johnson was wrong. Increases in the incidences were significant. Marijuana-related traffic deaths increased by 154% between 06 to 014. This was in his source that he brought up. So my point is, I can't read it, right? And this is why I get defensive. I can't read it because this TV's not working. I can't know what Jamie's bringing up. I'm going on memory. He has a never-ending cheat sheet, and there's no way that I can argue with that. And I would say, you're right about this. I'm incorrect. When I get defensive, it was when two people are saying, admit that you're lying, that it's bullshit. And I really, looking at his own sources, I don't think I was.
Well, I don't think we were saying you were lying. What I think we were saying is you were incorrect. And I have read multiple things that said that the traffic fatalities decreased, particularly in Colorado.
Right.
Who's right or who's wrong? I don't know. I mean, we'd have to go seriously digging.
Right. But his own source said that's wrong, is my point. And in real time, I can't fact check him because I don't have a computer, right?
Right. And he brought up also that could also be attributed to the fact that the population of Denver, Colorado increased substantially once marijuana became legal as well. You have to factor that in.
Right.
I think when you're talking about driving impaired, I do not think that marijuana has the same effect as alcohol. It certainly doesn't. However, I don't think it's a good idea to drive up. Right. Whether you're on marijuana, especially on edibles. I mean, edibles
hold on a second. That wasn't even a part of the equation. I really would advise against that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, edibles have a profound psychedelic effect. Edibles, when produced by your liver, or when processed by your liver, produce this substance called 11-hydroxy metabolite.
Right.
It's what THC is processed by the liver. It's 5 times more psychoactive than THC.
Sure.
Which is why I'm sure you've heard that famous 911 call where the cops stole some pot from some kids and made brownies out of it and then called 911 on themselves. And they said, I think we're dead. I think we're dying. Time's moving by really slow. Please send help.
Was that not pot? They were hallucinogenic.
It was edibles.
Okay, it was edibles.
They had just eaten a tremendous amount of edibles.
Yeah.
And edibles have a completely different psychoactive effect. It's
Right.
a psychedelic effect.
Yeah.
And it can be insanely confusing to you. And there's no way in hell you should be driving when you're fucked up on edibles. I think we both agree on that. And another thing that we kind of glossed over, but it is a very important point. I think we both agree that you shouldn't do anything that's mind altering when your brain is developing.
Right.
Whether it's things that you and I probably both did, like I drank when I was like 14 and 15 a bunch of times. Really shouldn't do it.
I know.
It shouldn't be done. It shouldn't be encouraged. You shouldn't do it. And the same thing I think you could say for hard drugs, for things like marijuana, for mushrooms. It's a lot of stuff that people do, particularly people that may or may not be inclined to have addictive tendencies.
Right. Well,
So
no, I would agree with you on that, and I think. And that's why I wanted to be clear. I don't care. I think people should be able to smoke pot. I support CBD. I support where it's medicinally useful. My only issue was when people completely deny the potential negative consequences. And so I know that the second that goes into it, right, people can get really defensive on this issue. I'm not trying to take anyone's pot away. But I agree with you on that. And I do feel, because a lot of times if you present anything, right, if you look at a lot of your audience, they'll say that's anti-pot propaganda. Well, there are actually a lot more studies coming out with millennials saying it's completely harmless or light up than me saying, hey, listen, if you're an adult, you're healthy, it's probably fine. But because over half my audience will be in that developing phase, and I think you have a pretty young audience, I do feel the need to curb it and say, listen, but you really shouldn't, it's not harmless. It's not like having a beer if you're 19 years old. It can be pretty problematic for you as a young person. And that's just where I feel like I need to be intellectually honest.
Yeah, I think you'd have to wonder what the dosage actually is between like a small puff of pot or a beer. Like which one has more of a detrimental effect, particularly for someone who doesn't drink. A beer can really get you pretty drunk if you're a young kid.
Right, but not the permanent effect on the frontal lobe as it's developing.
Is it different?
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Between alcohol and marijuana on 14-year-olds?
Yes, big difference. And we did have a psychiatrist who said, listen, your body can process a certain amount of alcohol. Again, just like she said, do not drink when you're young. She said, however, your brain actually is at an accelerated rate, that frontal lobe, which is really in control of your self-awareness, right? Your awareness of self, which, that's why a lot of people take psychedelic mushrooms to become hyperly aware of themselves. Some people anyway. She said for the developing brain, which is comprised largely of fat, she said marijuana specifically can affect that frontal lobe, which can fundamentally alter your ability to make self-aware judgments. And she said that's why she lectures across the country. And she's like, listen, she's a libertarian. If people are older, fine, do it. So I think that's a pretty balanced approach. And I would agree with that. I've not smoked pot. I'm open about that. But that was really the only point I was making. And I think we both dug in our heels and we agreed probably on a lot more than we disagreed.
I think you're right. I think we definitely both dug in our heels. And like I said, there's a lot involved in that. First of all, I got a hangover from this goddamn pipe that you left me.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to send you an article on how to use it properly.
Oh, yeah. The tobacco. I was high as a kite from it, for sure.
From the tobacco?
Yes. Yeah. Before I even started drinking, my head was spinning because I definitely was inhaling a bunch of times.
You shouldn't do that. And I don't say that because of high. I said because you can actually get little flecks of tobacco in your lungs. That's not filtered.
Yeah, I just got here from a yoga class. I took a 90-minute yoga class. I might have coughed some of that up in there.
You might cough it up.
I might have, some little flakes of tobacco might have come out.
Why is Joe behaving like the girl from The Exorcist? Yeah, and I would say this. I will say in my mind too. So I thought, well, did I screw up? And I looked back now, and we talked about it early in the show. I don't think I did. I don't back down to statements that I've made as far as my position. I don't think that you're wrong. My point is, if you look at the articles and how we sourced it, I knew we weren't bullshitting. And I know because, like you said, the left is always going, they're full of shit. This is a lie. I know, hold on a second. This went up. We had a AAA study, the fact check study. There's a difference between bullshitting and having a difference of opinion looking at interpreting data. And I wanted to make that clear because I will still say the jury can be out and you may be right. But it was certainly, I think, a study worthy of note. And then on my side, what I would change is because I know you're Joe Rogan, obviously. I mean, alpha brain, alpha male. I've seen you run roughshod over people who are like, well, okay, Joe, and they get scared. And I didn't want to be that guy because I knew you wouldn't respect that guy who just goes, okay. Maybe you would.
Well, I mean, I didn't want you to be defensive, if that's what you mean. I didn't expect you to dig your heels in. I didn't expect you to be submissive either. I just wanted to have a conversation.
Yeah.
It just didn't go well. You know, there's a bunch of factors. But it's only part of it that didn't go well, which is fascinating because we had a 5-hour podcast. I mean, that was a fucking long podcast.
Yeah.
And out of that podcast, what was it, like 20 minutes of it, we talked about pot, and that's all anybody is focusing on. That's
because that's what Jamie uploaded as a highlight too.
No, he didn't.
Oh,
did somebody upload it as a highlight?
Maybe somebody else did. I don't know.
No, I think somebody else did.
Yeah.
But either way, the conversations that we had before that were very civil.
Yeah.
And then we ended very civil too. But I think people have this tendency to gravitate towards conflict. They enjoy it. It's like, have you ever gone to, I'm sure you have, you go to a fighter's page after a UFC bout and you read all the shit talk that people say to them? I mean, it's horrendous. I mean,
my favorite page is Mark Hunt's after his fights or something happens. You just read it. He's just like, fucking steroids, mate. Everything. It just goes in and he just they hang me out to dry. F the UFC. F you. F Brock Lesnar. You're sitting there like, Mark, just tone it back. This is going to be admissible.
That was Mark. I was talking about fans. I mean, fans like after like Ronda Rousey recently lost, I went and checked like some of her, like the online things, the things that people were saying about her. I mean, people love jumping in on something that really doesn't. They're not really connected to it, but they connect themselves to it. They love conflict where essentially nothing is at stake for them, but they can really get whatever rocks off they have.
Well, they jumped on you when Ronda Rousey lost. Some people tweet me like, hey, why don't you talk to your friend Rogan about him saying she's the best ever? Tell him he's a little bitch. He knows where to find me. I'll get tweets like that. I'm like, like literally, you're tweeting me to tweet Joe because he liked Ronda Rousey and she lost, and this is the internet.
Well, we've talked about this before. The beautiful thing about the internet is everyone can talk. The terrible thing about the internet is everyone can talk.
Yeah, everyone can talk. But you have you're doing 100 million downloads per month or something like that?
Yeah, it's something along there. Yeah.
Gosh, think about that for a second. Think about when people say, "Oh, we're never going to have the ratings of like when it used to be 3 networks, like ABC, NBC, CBS." You're getting close.
Podcasts are there. Yeah, I mean they're pretty close. I'm sure if you looked at like Serial and some of the really big podcasts, NPR and some of the other ones that are always number one, I'm sure they're probably at network sitcom hit levels.
I would bet yours is bigger. You know why? Because you have YouTube and they don't.
Yeah, there's that too. There's Stitcher and there's a lot of people that download podcasts now because it's so easy to get. Podcasts are it's instantaneously available. You pause it whenever you want. It syncs up to your car. It's really the perfect medium for audio entertainment.
Yeah, I haven't used my radio in a very, very long time. I plug in my phone, and that's same thing with you. Well, you have one of those new Kias, which looks like a Lexus.
Hey, Joe, do you think some people, like some potheads, are downloading your thing more than once? That would make us feel better about our numbers.
Because they forgot.
There's a possibility.
In case, they could be like, dude, I swear I downloaded it. It's not here, man. I lost my phone. I got to download it again. Yeah, that certainly could be happening.
It make us feel better.
Whenever you're dealing with downloads, who knows what the actual number of individual humans are?
Yeah.
But it's a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing. And I get recognized for it more than anything now. Like wherever I go, it's like Fear Factor. I don't get recognized for anymore, hardly ever. It's UFC. But number one is podcast, seems like.
Let me ask you this, because I will, not to be arrogant, but that's been, Not Gay Jared knows, that's been happening more and more with me and him. Pretty much any time I go out now, I'm recognized. And because of, obviously, the security threats that we've dealt with, how do you feel? I mean, I'm always grateful, and I always try and be, but how do you handle those situations? Let's say if you're in an airport or you're in a rush and someone wants to take pictures. What's your approach to it?
If I can, I do. It's just a bunch of people being nice for the most part. The 99.99% of it is a bunch of people being nice. Occasionally there's people that they have the wrong idea of you because they've never actually met you in person. You could formulate an idea on a person based on a quote that you read or a video clip that you saw, and you could decide they're a piece of shit and run it over in your head until you've defined that person. But when you meet them and they're nice, like, hey man, how you doing? Oh, hey, what's up? It's like, what are you gonna do? You realize it's just a person And most of the time when I meet people, they're just people that are being nice to me.
Yeah.
So it's fine for the most part.
I've had it go both ways, believe it or not. Yeah, but it makes me paranoid a little bit because even if someone is really nice,
you should because of the Islamic factor, and you should be because of also really because of the feminist factor and the left wing factor. I mean, a lot of the stuff that you've done, I've seen people write some really hateful shit about you.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is someone trying to punch me. That's always less pleasant in my day-to-day ongoings. But for me,
don't you wish you could go back though to the one union guy that wanted to punch you and just little head movement?
No, you know why? Because my instinct was head and elbow collar tie. Here's the thing too. This is something I will talk. You want to talk about this? This is something that really has bothered me for a long time. The prosecuting attorney, right? So this is probably how people were introduced to me, who you've had on your show. They go, oh, Crowder clearly shoved that guy down and then video recorded it. Well, if you go on my channel now, you can see 2 simultaneous shots for 12 minutes. The guy is drunk. He trips. I mean, how can I shove him down? He's coming into me this way, right? He's on the attack. So it didn't happen. I sent over 20-something gigabytes to the local police. They said, you can't, and you'll love this because it's a conspiracy about the cops. They said, you can't file a police report by phone. Of course you can. And then the prosecuting attorney never took the 20-something gigabytes that I sent. If you read the statement in Washington Post, he said, I watched the commentary of the incident from the Young Turks. It's pretty clear the other guy instigated it. And they ran on that.
Meaning you?
Yeah. Yeah, me.
Oh, there. The Young Turks were saying that you instigated it?
And the prosecuting attorney didn't watch my footage. He watched the Young Turks video and cited it as his proof in holding a deposition with the guy who punched me when I was never notified. I was never there. And he let him off because of a Young Turks video saying, Crowder clearly punched him first. That was
Have you ever met Cenk?
No, my brother has. Apparently, he said, yeah, it's the Young Turks. And his friend one time, it was a total accident. He wasn't meaning to. His friend said, what? Young Turds? He never heard it. And Cenk turned around like if looks could kill. And he also had a patina of grease.
Well, people should know what a nice guy you are, that you were actually saying last night that you kind of feel bad that he gets those remarks about bacon grease, about eating bacon grease.
Well, you know why? And this is what I was saying with you and Jamie, because I've been on, every news network, you name it, I've been on there. You're smart to really not do it so much. But you had it when you were on Politically Correct with Bill Maher. I remember a long time ago. Of all people, Bill Maher, and they were all attacking you for Fear Factor. I've been in enough, doggy pile-ons, right, where I was brought on as the only conservative. So I never want to do that with someone else. So I kind of feel guilty in the sense that it was meant to be a funny sketch. Right? And so I did sketches with people the Young Turks have attacked. But I didn't want people to go over and troll their channel and doggy pile. I never want them to think that I'm doing what they did, which is like, everybody, let's attack them. And so I always feel a little bad about that.
Is that what they do? Do they really tell people to attack you?
They used to all the time. I mean, they not necessarily just me, but that was what they would do. Like, this guy on YouTube, he's an idiot. This is his channel.
Well, College Humor and some of those other groups.
College Humor did. Yeah, College Humor recently was like, tweet this guy. Oh, you want to know what was with College Humor? I swear to you, this is true. This is when, sorry, I know you probably have to go, but this is more conversational than it was yesterday. Look at this. College Humor, they took
Maybe it'd be better if I did your show instead of you doing mine. Maybe you just get a little weird coming over here, man. Or maybe it was the 2 caveman nitros that you drank.
I did drink 2. Well, now I drank 2.
More than 500 milligrams of caffeine in your system.
And I came from Coffee Bean Tea Leaf and had a nitro there. So that probably could have been it. But what was I talking about there? There was something.
College Humor.
Oh, College Humor. So there was a trend going on at one point where it was like body shaming and stuff. And it was on Twitter. And so I actually tweeted out, because it was all about female body shaming. And I tweeted out that famous image of Fedor, with him and the kettlebells, with the mirror. And I tweeted out, this is what the ideal male body is. You may not like it, but this is what peak performance looks like. And it was satire of some other tweet. Well, there was an autocorrect. Instead of male, it said make. And College Humor went with this, like, hey, tweet Crowder how dumb he is, and like 50,000
things. They tried to turn into a meme.
It was like, he's a faggot because he wants to have sex with Fedor, and none of them had any idea who Fedor Emelianenko was. And you'd get occasional comment like, oh yeah, that's Fedor. That's a really good point. So
yeah, Fedor was like the epitome of, like, he had that dad bod thing going on, and he was beating the shit out of everybody.
Yeah,
that's one of the things that people loved about Fedor. It's like when Ron Jeremy was the king of porn. You looked at him, And you were like, that guy's not threatening at all. Like, that could be me, man. I could be a plumber. I could be the pizza delivery guy. Like, it seemed like it was realistic, whereas, like, these guys with the six-packs and the perfect hair, they're like, I could never be that guy. I can't even watch this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Theodore represented, like, a regular, I mean, obviously a fit guy, obviously an athletic guy, but very regular looking, as opposed to someone like, like Chet Congo, who's like shredded and jacked, Yeah.
Which, by the way, I love how when Chet Congo and Mirko Cro Cop got into arguments, they both tacitly admitted that they did steroids. Where he was like, he said, I think Cro Cop takes steroids. And Cro Cop's answer was like, and he just got that way from eating vegetables. Like, he never said no.
Well, Cro Cop's been pretty open about it. Like when he got the last thing with the UFC where before he had to go to Ryzen, he had a shoulder injury. And he's like, look, I had to take some stuff to try to heal my shoulder. I wanted to keep fighting.
Do you still, I know you've been open about it. Do you do the growth hormone as you get older because of the neck injuries and stuff? Or what is it that you think is most important?
It's hormone replacement therapy. The idea behind it is as you get older, I'm 49, your body just doesn't produce hormones at the same level it did when you were younger. And as long as you do it, if you do it correctly, meaning you don't take too much, you make sure you take small amounts that bring you to the levels of a healthy man, like say like a 27-year-old healthy person. Like that is where you want to be. And that's why Sylvester Stallone looks the way he looks at 70. There was never old when we were a kid. He's probably taken some pretty high levels, probably like way more than what I take.
Yeah.
I don't know though, but I know that there's a lot of people that do that now. It's a very, very common thing.
Oh yeah.
But it's also a stigmatized thing where people don't want to talk about it. It's one of those things where people are ashamed to admit that they take synthetic hormones or,
And most fighters actually have a really balanced view on that. Tim Kennedy, who's the most outspoken against PEDs, said, he's like, but listen, if you're not fighting, you're older. He's like, I think it's a good thing to use modern chemical enhancements to keep you younger, just not when you're in the cage punching people in the face. And that would be another position where it's like, oh, there's nuance. That makes sense. But you're going to get people on both sides. He's an idiot. He's a fag. Like, okay, this is the internet. This is how it works.
Well, that's how it always is. But I would submit to those people, once you become my age, you realize the massive benefits of taking testosterone replacement therapy. And then if you don't do it, your immune system suffers. You need more sleep to recover from things. You don't feel as well. You don't have as much mental energy. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
And I think we have a short amount of time in this life, and I want to optimize that time. I want to enjoy it as much as possible, and I like doing a lot of physical things. I love doing jujitsu. I love working out. I love when I go hunting. I mean, you have to be in really good shape to hunt mountains. All these things they require a body that really works well, and one of the ways that I mitigate those issues is through strength and conditioning workouts and through testosterone replacement therapy, as well as nutrition and all the other things. I'm a big believer in maximizing every single possible area of your body and your mind that you can.
You're like Dolph Lundgren in Rocky IV, hooked up to a bunch of electrotransmitters. I have that with my thyroid, too. I take a pill that's actually just ground up beef thyroid every day because I have hypothyroidism. They didn't...
Yeah, I have that, too.
Oh, really? Do you?
Yeah.
Did it take a long time for them to figure it out? Because for me, since I wasn't really overweight, they were like, well, we weren't going to check for it because you're relatively fit. And it was like a diabetic 300-pound woman.
Yeah, I was getting headaches, and they couldn't figure out why I was getting these headaches. But at the end of the night, I would just be so tired. At the end of the day, I'd be so tired. It was like I was drugged, like I was in pain. Yeah, and no one could figure it out. And I finally went to a doctor, and it turns out my mom has it, and my sister has it. It's a really hereditary thing. It's very common. It's pretty controversial. Apparently, there's some ways to mitigate those issues with diet that I really should look into. But I know the people through. There's a diet called Primal Kitchen, Primal Blueprint diet that this guy Mark Sisson on my podcast. Yeah, you know that guy?
Yeah.
It's basically a ketogenic diet, a modified ketogenic diet, but by concentrating on healthy fats, which also are the building blocks for a lot of hormones. Which is interesting is once I got on the diet, I actually lowered the amount of testosterone I take because my testosterone jacked way up from eating more healthy fats, which it's the substrate for testosterone and hormones.
Well, not gay Jared has to be careful because he has no colon. So his diet is, what is your diet? Skittles are not prescribed.
Well, I mean, depends on what doctor you go to. I find the right ones. So
he doctor shops like Rush Limbaugh did for Oxy.
Some sketchy doctors handing them candy bars.
Yeah, I know. All right, well, Mr. Joe Rogan, thank you so much for being here, sir. We appreciate it. I'm glad. Hopefully, people see this and think, oh, okay, well, listen, maybe they don't hate each other.
Dude, I don't hate you at all. I think you're a good guy, and that's why I made that Instagram post. And I saw this back and forth both ways. People mad at you, people mad at me. It was just so stupid. And it was just, a drunken hiccup in a long conversation.
Well, I appreciate it. Hopefully we can have another conversation soon.
Sure.
I swear I'm not on the pipe right now. Joe Rogan, thank you so much, brother. Like you more than a friend, we have to go.
Take care, brother.
Take care. And we're back.
It pays to be prepared. You don't need to be a doomsday prepper or conspiracy theorist. It's worth it to have peace of mind, and that's why right now Louder with Crowder has a promotion with preparewithcr.com, where you can go do this online at preparewithcr.com or call 888-457-3453, where you can get your 30-day supply of emergency food, drink, dehydrated food for $99 shipped free. That's at preparewithcr.com or call 888-457-3453. Set it down somewhere in your basement, your den, and forget about it and just know that it's there if you need it. Hey, don't! You won't speak unless spoken to.
Sorry. I gotta go to the bathroom.
Use the bathroom bucket.
Okay. This way?
Yeah.
Reach the wizard. Reach the wizard.
All right, I'm glad to be back. Final segment, repping. We're getting very near the end of this now. Thank you so much to Joy Villa, right? Joy Villa and Joe Rogan. Boy, they were both lovely, both cute as a button.
They were cute as a button.
You wouldn't necessarily expect from Joe Rogan to be cute as a button.
No, but he was.
And I'm glad we had him back on. I'm glad we cleared that out. I think it's important for people to see, this is also the idea behind this idea of divorce. You see a lot of people saying, well, we just weren't happy. So it's better that our kids are not there for the conflict than be in that kind of household. And actually, studies show that it's much more healthy for children to see conflict and conflict resolution.
Yep.
Than just cutting and running. And so hopefully you see that with me and Joe Rogan. I really have a lot of love for the guy. I very much appreciate him. I think he's a bright guy. I think he's wrong on some issues. Sometimes I think his approach is wrong, but I honestly, I'm pretty straightforward with you guys. If I don't like somebody, we actually talk too much about that sometimes on the show. Sure. Or we'll tell these stories. People are like, hey, why did you say that? And I'm like, well, it's because it's true. You did do that when you came on the show. And sometimes people get mad. I would tell you, Joe Rogan has been nothing but kind and supportive behind the scenes. And like you said, listen, he has a lot more to risk by doing that, right? There are a lot of people out there who don't like what we do. And there's no reason for Joe Rogan to be supportive at all. So we appreciate him. And Joy was just absolutely lovely. We'll have to have her back on.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll watch that transition with her. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you she's going to become more and more outspoken because she's in it now. She's already jumped in the pool.
The trigger has been pulled.
Oh, and you know what? Before we go, tomorrow, so next week we will be back. Louder with Crowder every day, Monday through Thursday. Then Friday will be Morning Grinders. So tomorrow on Morning Grinders, you guys have been reading about this on Twitter, we will have the much anticipated arm wrestling match between Not Gay Jared and Courtney.
Place your bets. Yeah. Place your bet.
Team Not hashtag Team Not Gay Jared.
Place your bet.
Hashtag
I'm gonna bet. You're gonna place it right down the bet. We're betting on the bet. Gonna place it.
So you'll see that tomorrow on Morning Grinders.
Yep.
Because there's not much else for that show to offer currently.
No.
So I'm curious. I think men typically beat women. That's what I think. And
I'm hoping the science holds
But the
out.
results have been what? Most people think Courtney will win?
It's about 70-30.
They think she'll win.
Yeah, in fact, we're going to get a new poll out tonight, so we're keeping the polls updated.
Keeping the polls updated. So 74%?
70-30.
Think Courtney's will win.
Courtney's going to handily beat me. So
that's a defeat in and of
I don't even
itself,
know.
Jared.
I don't even know.
You've lost before that contest occurs.
This is true.
So we will see you next week. Listen, if there is a takeaway here this week, first off, it's that I'm very tired. I flew on a red eye afterward on the way back from Rogan show, 5 hours. But I really do feel grateful, honestly, to be able to have a discussion with someone like Joe Rogan, who has the reach far, far beyond most mainstream networks now, to be able to have a disagreement, to be able to get in a really heated disagreement, and to still be friends, and to be in a position politically where that's okay. And I can't imagine, this is one thing that we need to keep alive on the right, or libertarians, conservatives, whatever you want to consider yourself. We need to keep alive the idea that we can have a discussion, and I don't necessarily even mean civil. You can have sometimes uncivil discussion, very heated discourse, but still be friends with people, still be able to come to the table after it and say, hey, you know what? Good show, shake hands, and accept the result. And I'm just filled with gratitude. I can't thank people enough for putting us in a position where we're able to do that and be as truthful as we can. We'll see you next week and tomorrow morning, Grinders.